This is a short video with some hints to kickstart you on this assignment 1. So, first of all, I would suggest you create the assignment 1 folder, and here I have actually started on a markdown document, and this is for I created this when I demonstrated how to make a markdown document. So now let's start by just deleting everything here. Actually, one other thing I would like to mention. It's a good idea to, from time to time, or actually quite often, restart RStudio completely. Perhaps I should do that now. Let me just save this file, save like this, and restart RStudio. Because this will sort of, empty everything. You restart from scratch, you could say. Otherwise, when you just shut down the window and sort of log out and log in again later, it's not really a restart. You have to go in here and quit session to actually restart RStudio. So I tend to do this quite often because I found that this prevents some hiccups. Yeah. So how should we start here? The first thing we are asked to do is to read this file here, which should be available in this folder here. So that's the first thing I would do. Let me just create a section here, a section here called file sizes. And here you can write some text here. I don't do that, but sooner or later you will come to making an R chunk with some code. And here I just simply paste in this file the path and the name of this file directly. So we should read this in. It said this should be a simple tab separated text file, right? Tab separated file, yeah. 32 samples and so on, 2 columns. This should be straightforward. There are many ways you can read such file into R. I like to use the tidyverse functions. So I like to always start by loading the tidyverse packages, because then I have available lots of functions that I like to use. You don't have to do that. I mean, there are always multiple alternative ways of how you do things in R, like in other coding environments as well. So I'm not saying you have to do it exactly this way, but this is how I prefer it. And then in order to read a text file like this, there's a function called readDelim that I prefer to use. And then we need to have the name of the file. So now I should just put it inside here, and it has to be inside quotes, right? And this will then typically read this file, and I will store this into some table here that I can call whatever I like. But yeah, so this is one way of doing it. You can do that. There are many functions for reading tables in R. The point I would like to make here now is whenever you load a package inside a chunk like this, you will see that when you knit the document, there will typically be some messages, because the messages that usually appear in the console window will now appear in your document. And this is not catastrophic, but it looks bad, right? We don't want all these messages from this loading of the packages. It's a hassle. So how can you easily turn it off? Like this. In the chunk in the R chunk, you comma and use this message equals false. Remember, I told you can also use this eval equals false to turn off the evaluation of in this case, we should not do that because we want this to actually be executed. So this one should be evaluated. But there are many of these flags, as we call them, these options that turn on or off behavior. Message, eval, echo. There are many. You can look it up if you look into the help for R Markdown. But whenever you load a package, it's a good idea to include this one, so you don't have all these messages in your document obscuring the texture you want to have there. Okay, I will not do anything more here. Let's move on to this log file information. So it says that in this folder here, there will be 32 different files, and all of them has the ending .log. You should now read these files one by one and then collect these pieces of information. It says here, use list file to collect all the file names. And there are a couple of hints I would like to give you here now. So first of all, let me just make myself a new section here and more blah blah before we come to some R chunk here. So first of all, to list the names of the files, log file names, I would like to have a variable or an object here that contains all the names of this, and we should use the function list files, right? It says here to collect them. And then it's a good idea, if you are not familiar with this function, to have a look at the help file for it. And here you can see that question mark function name will always give you the help. List files path, yeah, first the path, which folder do you want to list the content of? And of course, in our case, it's this one. You were given the folder here. And of course, you have to remember here, quotes, always a text around. So the path is this one, obviously. Yeah, let me make this window a little bit wider so we can see more. Path is this one, yes. And this is sort of enough to do the job. It will now list the content of the files. We can actually run this chunk only just to check that it actually works. And you can do that by clicking on this green arrow here. You don't have to knit the whole document. You can just run this particular chunk. And you can see now we created the log file names here. Actually, I want to display it slightly different, like this, grid. Log file names is now a text vector character, it says, with 33 different names in it. And we can see it because this, if I display the content here, you will see the name. And we can see the log files, but we can see there is one file here which is not the log file. This file was also in the same folder. So now we listed all files, right? We should only list the log files. How do we do that? Well, an easy way to filter this is if you use this next here, pattern. If you scroll down and read, what is pattern? An optional regular expression. Only file names which match the regular expression will be returned. Okay, so this is exactly what we need here now. I put in a comma and I said pattern equals. And now we should give, it says a regular expression. Well, it's a regular expression can be many things, but this is simple text is also a regular expression. So I only want to list the files which contain the text.log. And if I look at all the files, all the log files have this ending, right? It could be anything inside. We can also use this mag machine here, because I see that all the log files also has that text in their name. So that would also work here. because I see the only file which I don't want to list is this one. It doesn't contain neither log nor mag machine. Okay, but I think I will stick to this one. So if I run this chunk again now, we can see now it's 32 names, right? Now it lists only those who have .log in their name. And that's the 32 files I want. These files, if I start reading these files now, I need to know where they are located, because they are not located in the folder where I'm actually working now. And this is also a point. When you use R Markdown, the working folder is always this folder of where the file is stored, regardless of what you say otherwise. It looks like the working folder is my home directory, but whenever I knit the document, it's temporarily changed to the folder where this document is stored. So actually it's nice to just change the working directory to that source file location, to the same location as the source file. This is the source file, right? So you do this. So here is the folder that I'm working in. And if I want to read, for instance, this log file here, we are told to use this read lines, wasn't it? The read lines function. Read lines. And let's say I want to read the first log file. Number 1. If I try to run that here now, and I store this in just some X or whatever I call it. If I click like this, there will be, names. Right? I called it log file names, and here I wrote log file name, so it says log file name not found. There is no such object. Let me correct this and try again. And now I have a different message here. Cannot open this file. No such file or directory. Of course, there is no such file here. In order to open this file, I need to, of course, put the correct path in front of it. And this you can do in multiple ways. First of all, let me show you one way of doing it. File path is a common way of splicing path and file in R. So I just copied this path here. So you can see this function here now will construct the full file name. It will take this path and add to this name. So if I run only this code, let me just copy this and run it out here in the console window. This code alone, here you can see the result of it. It takes the path, it gets a double slash here even, so I shouldn't, it will not create an error actually. The double slash is legal, but it looks silly, so I should remove that slash then. Like that. So this one will create the correct file name, right? Because it takes the full path and puts in front of the actual file, because this is the correct name of the file. It tells the system that the file is called this, but it's located on a different folder. This is really important, right? You have to understand this, that files are not, it's not enough to have only the name of the file, you also need to know where it is, as long as it's not here in this particular folder that you're working. If it was here, then you didn't have to add this path. But as long as it's not here, it's somewhere else, you have to tell where somewhere else. There is actually another, and I think a slightly better way of solving this. Let me go back to the way I had it, like this. When you use the list files function up here, you can also add another option. If we go back to the help file for list files here, notice this option here, full.names. A logical value, true or false. If true, the directory path is prepended to the file names. Yes, this is exactly what we want. If we now say full.names equals true here, then when you execute this code, let me do that. I press Control and Shift like this. Then we can look at the log file names again. And now you will see that now all of them have been given the correct path. Can you see that? So now we don't only have the name of each file, but we also have the full name of each file with the path. Yeah, again we can delete the last slash there, so we avoid this double slash here. Looks prettier. So in this case, now I can read this directly, right, without any error, because now I use read lines, and now the log file name number 1, what is it? If I just copy, and how does it look like? It looks like this. This is the file I now read and store into X, and X is now a vector with one line, with one element for each line. So it's a big text vector because there are thousands of lines, 1500 lines in this first file. It only shows the, we can have a look at the first 5 lines or something like that. The top of the file looks like this. Empty line, work folder, raw data folder, the file stem, blah blah blah, like this. So that's the first file. And of course, in order to read all the files, you need to loop. You need a for loop. And I strongly suggest that whenever you try to make a for loop, always start with the for loop which is running only one iteration. And then you make the code inside the for loop working. And once this works, you can start to loop over 1 up to 32, or length of this here, right? So always start with a loop, which is not really a loop at all, but because it goes only one iteration, and then add the code in here to make this work. Yeah, I don't think I will say much more right now on how to. So here comes now the inside here. You need to fill in the code, right? To do what should I say, the messy stuff here. You read the line, now you have to start looking for which lines in this vector should you collect, and try to collect the correct information from each line, because you see the lines are pretty messy, right? And this is a quite, I would say, typical sort of exercise for a bioinformatician, because data comes hidden in messy files. That's something we experience quite often, and you need to do some coding to get to sort of pick up exactly those pieces of information in that file that we are looking for. And don't expect data to always come in nice tables or something like that, because they don't. Okay,